Well, let's get you some analysis on the story and bring in Dr Harlan Cloete, who is a local governance expert. Dr Cloete, a pleasure talking to you. I don't think residents in those underserviced municipalities actually need Cyril Ramaphosa to admit this. They are living under a lack of service delivery. But what a stunning admission by Cyril Ramaphosa, and what a stunning ultimatum to councillors.
Good afternoon, good morning, Michelle, and good morning to the viewers. Yes, you know, it was a frank admittance that the ANC councillors are failing. Remember, we've got 25 years of local government in this current format. There were a number of projects. It was the back to basics. We now have a review of local government. And, you know, there's a pattern here. Sometimes municipalities, they hear, but they're not listening. And hopefully this will draw a line in the sand, because it was about time that we hear such fiery talk. But you know, what follows talk is action. Let's hope that the ANC pulls through and really acts on its intention, because communities all over South Africa are crying out for better governance in their municipalities.
What I found very fascinating was the president going as far as to tell councillors, let's go to Cape Town and ask the DA what they are doing.
Yeah, I think some of the ANC members wouldn't like that, and I think that the DA, they are smiling all the way, because I think what the president is saying, if they are doing better, what is it that we can learn from them? Because ultimately, I think communities don't really care who governs them, whether it's the ANC or the DA. Communities want clean water. They want to be safe in their communities. They want to be able to speak to their ward councillor. They want to be able to engage the municipality about things that concerns them on the local level. And so it's a frank admittance that somehow they're doing right. Now, the yardstick that is used is financial governance. Year in and year out, the Auditor General reports on the state of municipalities. And it is a fact that the DA is doing much better in terms of the financial governance and establish a culture of institutional governance in their municipalities.
Yeah, absolutely. And corruption is closely linked to that, right? I don't know if you would agree with this kind of assessment. It's perhaps too strong, but the ANC is now synonymous with the machinery of corruption in the country. The latest information we have from the Gauteng Health Department is that 2 companies linked to the Deputy President's sons, for example, Paul Mashatile's sons, were paid over 46 million rand in the past 3 years for fire detection. Just for some context, there have been 3 fires at one Gauteng hospital this year alone. But so this issue of cleanup, this issue of service delivery, these are things that the ANC must now surely be doing to scramble ahead of local government elections, because this is what South Africans now care about.
I think one thing, just coming back to your point on corruption, remember that the president said, if you look at the Zondo Commission, he said the ANC is in the dock as accused number 1, because it is under the ANC's watch that a lot of these things happen. Now, the municipalities, the community elect the politicians, and then the politicians appoint a municipal manager to run the affairs, and the municipal manager then appoints his directorates. I think that's where the problem came in. If we are going to move forward, the research shows that we need a professional bureaucracy. We need professionals at the hands to be able to implement, and then you need politicians to do oversight. In a lot of cases, these lines are blurred, where those in power, the politicians, appoint their friends or family members, etc., etc., and that becomes a problem. The capturing, for example, of the supply chain management, because Corruption Watch did a research a couple of years back, and they found that most corruption happens in the office of the municipal manager. And so that is where the problem comes. Sometimes it's about appointing people to implement the policies of government that do not necessarily have the qualifications. That is, our research has also shown that sometimes people are appointed that are out of their depth. So that is a problem, the appointment of professionals to run the institutions.
Yeah, and the president admitted as much as well, Dr. Cloete, when he was visiting the Northwest. It was the 12th, it was on Friday, particularly focused on the Ditsobotla local municipality, which has been placed under administration now 9 times. And the president talked about, number one, the issue of accountability, talked about radical solutions, and he also talked about appointing people who have the right qualifications, which sounds like an obvious thing, but it's not been the case.
I think the ANC has been accused of cadre deployment. Let me also say in the same sentence that all political parties deploy and appoint cadres who are loyal to them. You know, it's in the nature of a political party. The problem comes in if you appoint an incompetent person, a person who is not qualified for the job. That means that communities suffer. Communities suffer the most if we appoint people who cannot do the work. You know, that is the basic, that those that are appointed should have the qualifications and experience to be able to lead these institutions. I've had many discussions with municipal managers and officials, and they tell me, you know why this thing works? Is because we've got the courage to also sometimes oppose the politicians, to steer them into the right direction. Where it doesn't work, where there are blurred lines between the politicians and the administrators, that is where things go wrong.
Yeah. So do you get the sense, Dr. Cloete, that, you know, we've got 14 months to go until the local government elections, November next year, that the ANC is really trying to shore up whatever it can before we go to the polls?
Look, the ANC is in trouble. If you look at the results of the national election, that its support is declining. That has been the trend, I think, for the last 15 years, but also worldwide. You know, the party that brings liberation, normally they do not complete 40 years in power. What the ANC, I think this is a wake-up call, because I think that they will continue to lose support even as we go to the 2026 election for various reasons. One being Jacob Zuma's party, Floyd Shibambu's now had a party, we've had the EFF forming a party, and all of those voters are traditional ANC voters, because at one stage they were all part of this ANC machine. So now they fragment the vote, and with the rise of popular parties like Patriotic Alliance, you know, local government is completely different than national. Another important fact is that local communities, you have local issue-based parties arising, saying, we do not want to be controlled by Luthuli House or by Wales Street. We understand the dynamics locally. And so I think you will have an increase as well of local issue-based parties competing in next year's local government elections.
You talked about the state capture inquiry where the president himself admitted that the ANC was accused, number one. And of course, tomorrow the Madlanga inquiry kicks off as well.
Yeah. You know, we've had so many inquiries. As somebody said the other day, you know, it's seminar. We do not get to the point where we implement these recommendations. And I think that is what South Africa wants, and that is what frustrates them so much, is that we have these inquiries, the results are produced and published, but we do not act on these recommendations. That, I think, is the most frustrating problem.